Hello, you are listening to NPE Stories. This is a podcast where NPEs can share their story. I'm your host, Lily, and I found out I was an NPE through an ancestry DNA test that changed my life forever. NPE is a term that stands for Not Parent Expected or Non-Paternal Event. This means that one or more of our parents are not who we believe them to be. NPE Stories is a podcast where NPEs can share their story of what their original family was like, how they found out they were an NPE, and what their journey has been like since the day they found out. Welcome to episode 12, where today I am talking to Karla. Hi, Karla.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for doing this today. And I don't know anything about your story. We're just talking about it. So I'm hoping you'll bring me back to the beginning and let me know what your original family was like.
Okay, I was raised, mom and dad were married, had 4 children, so I'm the youngest of 4. I think I should say right in the beginning, I'm going to refer to dad is my birth certificate father. I call him dad. My birth mother will be, I'll refer to her as mom. And my biological father, I'll refer to as my bio dad.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
So we grew up in a nice town. We lived on about 2.5 acres of land. It was wonderful. I loved being outside as a child. So I had my sister was the oldest. She's 8 years older. My oldest brother, 13 months younger than she, and then had a little gap in between. I had a brother that's 18 months older than I am, and then me, the baby.
Okay. You're the baby. And how much younger are you?
So I'm 52 right now. I'm 18 months younger than the youngest brother.
Got it. And you are the NPE, correct?
And I am the NPE, yes.
Okay. So how, if you don't mind, tell me how you found out you were an NPE.
So Christmas of 2017, my daughter, I have 3 grown children, and she decided it would be a good Christmas present for us to have the 23andMe done. So we decided, yeah, sure, why not? It's always, fun to do something new, and why not? So we had ours done, and results came back, and I wasn't really too into it. I looked at it, and I knew I was Portuguese from my dad's side, and some Mexican and Native American on my mom's side, and there wasn't too much Portuguese showing up, but I didn't really pay attention to it. Nobody really did at that time. My dad decided he wanted to have his done after seeing that we had our results. So I said, "Oh, I'll buy you your kit. How about that?" At this point, I had no idea anything was going to be different than what I was told my whole life. So it was a Friday evening, I remember, and he called me. I was leaving from work, and he said his results were in, and I said, "Well, we'll go over on Sunday. Bring your iPad." Well, Sunday was going to be Easter. We were having a get together, and it'd be fun for us to share and compare and everything. So I got home from work, and my daughter called me and said my dad had called her. He was having anxiousness. He really wanted to get into his 23andMe and look at it. So she guided him through, walked him through, click this on your iPad, click that. He's 81 years old. And she walked him through it. And when she had pulled hers up as well, and she noticed that his name wasn't connected to us. So she had a little bit of a panic and told him, she was on the phone with him, she told him, "Hang on, oh, I see Uncle Steve's there, or Uncle Steve, sorry, is my dad's brother. Saw his name. My dad said he saw his brother's name come up. And my daughter said, well, why don't you compare right there? I got to call mom real quick, and then I'll call you back. So she calls me and says, Mom, I was just talking, she was talking to my dad, and he wasn't coming up. And I said, no, what do you mean? You're doing something wrong, honey. You're doing something wrong. So I pull up my 23andMe, and I type in my dad's name. And when his name came up, it said his name and I share 0 DNA. Mm. And I was like, wait, something is wrong here. There's no way that could be. So meanwhile, I was, what do I do? What do I do here? So my daughter and I were talking, and I said, okay, well, let me call my uncle. My uncle is a retired professor. He's got really smart brains. He could figure out how to fix this. So I call him, and I said, this is coming up. What's wrong with 23andMe? How come it's saying my dad is not my dad? And he said, honey, it's correct, and I just, I just went into a spiral. I had no idea. There's no way this could be. So I guess I need to back up. My mom and dad divorced when I was 18. They were married for 28 years. We all knew there was going to be a divorce coming up when, the baby turned 18. They didn't fight a lot, but they didn't get along very well. And she was choosing to move out of state. So, I didn't want to call my dad at that point, so I thought, I guess I'd need to call my mom. So I called her, and I said, Mom, I got my results. I said I got, Dad got his results back, because she had known we had ours. I got my dad's, and he's not showing up as my dad. What's going on? And she said, oh, you're going to believe that? And I said, well, it's DNA. I think it's not something that you believe. It's, fact. And she just kind of got angry and, said, well, what, do you think I'm a floozy? And I said, well, no, Mom, I don't think you're a floozy. I just know that I found out my dad is not my dad. I don't know. Were you assaulted? Were you, I don't know. So she hung up on me. So that whole night, I was looking in the mirror saying, who are you? What? My dad, I'm not my dad's daughter. I'm like Daddy's little girl. We are just so close. He's just an amazing man. And, my children just love him as he's a good grandpa. I have 5 grandchildren. My grandchildren just love him. And I'm just thinking, this can't be. Who am I? And I just was looking in the mirror. Who are you? So it's probably 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, I need to try to get some sleep. And I'm laying down in bed, and the Rolodex that, is just rolling through my brain. Like, who could be your dad? Who could be your dad? And it just stopped. It stopped on my cousin. Thought of my cousin, and she and I had gone through life, people telling us how much we look alike. We look so much alike since we were little, all the way up. And I was thinking to myself, and she's a 3rd cousin. So she is the daughter of my dad's 1st cousin, my aunt. She was, does that make sense? My dad's 1st cousin, female, it was her daughter. So okay. I was raised knowing her as my 3rd cousin growing up.
Okay, so it's your dad's 1st cousin's daughter. So I think that's
right.
2nd cousin. But I understand
second,
what you're
right.
saying. Yes.
Okay. So and I'm thinking, okay, so if I look like her so much and I shared zero DNA with that side of the family, I shouldn't look like anybody. But I look more like her than any of my siblings that I grew up with. So I just stopped there and I thought, wait, her dad, I grew up with her mom and dad as my aunt and uncle. No way. Is he my dad? I'm like, no way. So I immediately got up, went on my Facebook, and I just went through all of their Facebook pages, and I was looking at pictures and photos of him, and I was like, man, I do look like them. Oh my gosh. So that's what I was struggling with. The next day, I was just like, what do I do? I don't even, my mom's not talking to me about it. I'm going to be seeing my dad. I was able to put him off until, we were going to see each other the next day on Easter. So how am I going to let him, how is this going to go? I just couldn't believe this was happening. So a few other phone calls I made to an aunt and just a friend and my best friend, just kind of telling them what's going on. What do I do? I don't know what to do. So it was about 24 hours later, my mom called me and she said that she had some information for me. And she said that she was assaulted by a family member. And I said, well, was that family member, my uncle? I said, which uncle? And she said, well, how did you know? And I said, well, I've just been thinking, and I look like my cousin so much, and the family that, I just felt it. It felt like it, And so, she told me her story, and, at this point I was a complete sponge because I had nothing. I was a dry sponge, just ready to absorb everything because I had nothing. So everything she told me, I was listening very, very carefully. And there were some things that didn't quite match up to her story. And I just kind of flagged them in my mind. Anyway, I was so sorry that she had been assaulted. And, of course that, just, I don't even know what I'm going to do with this now, And at this time, my biological father, he passed away about, I guess it's been over 10 years now. So he's not around to talk to. So, my mom acted very, very different, very, very kind of angry, very concerned about herself, very concerned about, I don't know, but she didn't seem to wonder how I was doing right away. It felt like, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but it would have been nice to have some comfort from her. And it just turned around and it was about, all about her. And I was sorry that she had gone through this, but over the next probably a couple months, we were having phone conversations and they weren't very nice. They were me questioning her. I was completely honest with her. I let her know right away that I wasn't fully believing her story, because she said she had no idea. She had no idea that I was my biological father's daughter. And she had, no clue. She thought she was already pregnant with me when this assault happened. And she was a few weeks late on her period. So she just didn't ever think about it. But then I started thinking about, well, if you were already pregnant with me and then you were assaulted, well, maybe I think you would have had been assaulted twice because it should have happened before, 6 weeks or so before that because she was already pregnant, and I am my biological father's child. So I was doing math, and it was just kind of, my ears were perking on a couple different things she said. Anyway, like I said, I was being completely honest with her because I felt so bad not believing her story, but there were just too many things that I couldn't look away from. And I thought, my biological father, he can't speak for himself. And I was getting closer and closer to really believing that my mom wasn't telling the truth. And so that really upset her that I wasn't believing her. She told me I was, stabbing her in the heart every time I said that. So a final conversation we had, she actually disowned me and doesn't want to, and that was about 8 months ago. So she doesn't want to have anything to do with me. And I kind of jumped a little bit because during the phone conversations with her and finding out and now realizing my cousins are really my half siblings, is this something I share with them? Is this something I keep to myself? My children are saying, oh, you have to tell them. And I'm saying, no. There's no way I can tell them. And then part of me is thinking, well, maybe I do. What if they're going to do 23andMe and they're going to find out and think that I was, keeping this a secret and then be mad at me? There's just so many things to think about when this happens. And my aunt, my new half sibling's mom, was not doing well with her health. And my number one thing was that I do not want her to find out about this. I do not want her to find out about me or this situation. If I was able to control my dad from not finding the situation out, I wish I could have changed that as well. But, being in control now and being able to control something was that. I didn't want her to know. So my daughters kept saying, you need to talk to them and let them know. And so my mom said, this was before she did the disowning part of her thing. She agreed that we could tell two of my new siblings because they're in the area. The other two are not in the area. But she would go ahead and go with me to tell them, and she would agree to the fact that, she would agree to say it was consensual. And I thought that was kind of interesting too, that she was okay with letting them know something different than what she was saying. Okay, it was consensual. So she lives in another state. She flew over, and something in my gut was just telling me, it's not time. It's not time. I don't want to tell anybody. I wasn't feeling. I've been meditating and praying since this has been happening. And sometimes I feel like a strong no. And sometimes I feel like a strong yes. And this was like a strong no. It's not the time to tell them. So when she was here for her visit and I said I didn't want to tell them, for some reason it kind of upset her. And I think it's the fact that she's very controlling. She's a very controlling mom. She ran a tight ship. And I think she wanted to be in control of the situation if we were going to tell them. And since I decided to not tell them now, but in the future, that must have upset her or something. So I don't know, about a month or two later, I was feeling like, okay, we can tell my new sisters, how do we tell my new sisters? I didn't know if I wanted to do it. My daughters said they would do it. They would meet. I knew I didn't want my mom doing it. For sure. I knew that. I didn't want my mom doing it. I didn't want to do it. So my two daughters decided to let the two new sisters know. So they called and made arrangements to go meet, and they shared the information with the two sisters, and of course they were completely shocked. And
were you there? I'm sorry, were you there, or it was your
no,
children talking to the new half siblings?
right?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. I wanted them to have space because you don't know how somebody's going to react, and I didn't want to be there in case they wanted to get angry and thought they couldn't be angry, because I'm there. I thought they needed their own space. There's no protocol on how to handle this situation, so it's just, it was, my gut was leading me through everything. So they found out, and about, a day, 2 days later, I received a text message separately from each one of them, expressing how, sorry that I'm going through this, and they need to absorb the information, and that they love me very much. This family, growing up, great family, we loved each other, and it's just like, whoa, here's a different thing. But it was nice to receive the text messages back from them, and I was so concerned that there was going to be anger, throughout this whole ordeal. All I was hoping that, let's try to avoid anger. I don't want anger. Let's just figure it out. Why am I'm 52, well, I was 51 at the time, finding out this information. Why? There must be a reason. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to just be open, and so we ended up having a meeting, the two new sisters and I, at a local park, and, we hugged and cried, and, I didn't have much to give them because I didn't have much from my mom. Our biological dad is dead. Can't get anything from him. I just know with all my information, I was 99.99% sure that this man did not assault my mom, and I needed to protect him. I needed to stand up for him. There were family get-togethers, when I was older. My biological father and my mom would dance together and be happy, and just there's just so many things that it's like, it didn't feel like it was an assault. 11 years ago, my biological father and his wife, which was my aunt, went to the state my mother lives in with my stepdad, and they had like a 2-day visit with each other. When I was a child, my mom lived here in where I am. My aunt and she were pretty good friends. They were really good friends. They'd grocery shop together. They did all kinds of things together. So when they went to go visit my mom in another state, 11 years ago or whatever, I thought, oh, wow, that's cool. That's neat. You're meeting up with them. But now looking at it at this time and where I am, and it was my biological father going to go see my mother in another state and spending 2 fun, great days together, just kind of confirmed my thoughts on their relationship. Or, I just feel like it was an affair. I really do. Or, just a one-time thing. I don't know. I'll never know. So I'm just, we're handling it pretty well. My dad, I just got to say, that man is the most, I need to come up with a new adjective to describe this man, because no word quite fits him, but he's amazing, classy, sweet, honest, wonderful man in the world. And we're just going through it together. He says, it's just a dot on the paper. You're my daughter. Nothing's going to change. It's not your fault. But you still have that little, that doesn't change, but I've changed. I'm not me. I'm somebody else, so it's easy for people to say that, oh, nothing's changed. It's fine. But, it, it's a challenge.
Yeah. It's devastating.
Yes.
Sounds like you love your dad so much. And
I do.
do you think your biological father knew about you?
I think he did. Yes. And I talked to my half sister, my new sister. She agrees. We agree. We think they both knew. And that's what I have a problem with. I'm not worried about how it happened. I'm like, she says she had no idea. How can you say you had no idea? How can you say you had no idea when I'm looking back at it now, it's like, my sister is 5 feet tall. I'm 5'7". They all got tan in the summer. I sunburned. I'm white. I've got brown eyes. They're all every green and blue. All these things. Okay, so I have 3 children, and all 3 of them have different birth fathers. And each one, when they were born, each one matched the birth father. When I saw that baby, it's like, oh, yep, that's me. That's your birth father. I had three of those. In fact, my oldest daughter is an NPE. She did not find out that her biological father her dad was not her biological father. I told her when she was 13. That's a whole different story. But so I know what it's like to keep a secret. I had to keep it for 13 years and it killed me, So here she's had to keep this secret for 51 years. And here's the opportunity to let's fix it. Let's heal. Don't get mad at me and shut me out. It's had to been eating you alive all these years. Here's the opportunity to let's fix it. I wanted to go to counseling. She didn't want to go to counseling. It's just better to just shut me out than to try to fix it, because she's a perfectionist. She's always, everything had to be perfect. Everything had to be perfect. And this makes her not perfect. So the only way to do it is to shut it out. And now she's back to being perfect again, I guess. I just think it's sad. And my brother that I was raised with, one of my brothers and my sister are not speaking to me. They disown me as well. My oldest brother, he passed away 6 years ago when he was 52. And that was hard for the family. That was tough. He was always able to talk to my mom, and I just think sometimes if he was here, maybe he'd be able to talk her into trying to fix and heal things, but he's not. So we're pushing through.
I'm sorry that here you are going through something so devastating. And like you said, your mom could have the opportunity to bond with you about this and to be open and honest and get this secret fully off her chest. And it sounds like her story has changed so many times and is being accusing and now shutting you out and changing the story. And I'm just listening to you nodding along, and I'm sorry for you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
I'll send you a book title after this I'm reading. It's called Healing and it may not apply to you, but I'll just mention it. It is called Healing the Daughters of Narcissistic Mothers. Have you heard of that one? Will I ever be good enough?
No, that sounds good, but it's been interesting because the last 3 months ago, that word popped up, and I never really knew the definition of that word. I always thought, oh, that's a not a good word, narcissist. And then I started researching, and I thought, wow, that was my mom. That's my mom. Oh, wow. Okay. So now I'm, it's going to be able to heal me. And maybe this is why I needed to find out. I'm going to be able to heal myself being raised by a narcissist mom, not realizing that it was so damaging. She was damaging. And so that's starting to come up. So it's quite interesting. My aunt, my biological father's wife, she, like I said, she was sick and she passed away about 2 months ago. And so my two sisters decided that they were going to mention me to my brother that I have, that was raised as my cousin. And so he knows. And then I've got nieces and nephews through them, so they know. And then once that was done, then I thought, it's okay I feel okay doing this story. I don't have to hide it from anybody anymore. I'm not going to hide it from anybody anymore. And we're just, we're just going with it, taking day to day,
Yep.
Who knows what's going to happen, I love family. I really do. And if, I know I've got the nieces and nephews. In fact, I was on my Facebook when I found out, and I was scrolling through, my cousin posted that, she became a grandma. And I remember just thinking, I wanted to say, I wanted to be sister-like to her. And I wanted to, grab my nephew, and he's the one that had the baby. And I wanted to see that baby. I just love babies. I want, I'm your auntie, I love my nieces and nephews that I have now, but, to have more. And it would be fun to maybe get together or whatever, but I'm leaving that all on their end. That's for them. So I'm here, and,
you're being considerate of your new half siblings, but it sounds like you have so much love for them. Should they, should you choose to go that direction as a family? Oh, it's so sweet that you have so much love for them, your new half siblings and their new offspring.
Right. Yes. Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. So,
well, if people would like to hear more about you or your story, how would they get in touch with you?
So I am a member of the Facebook DNA NPE group. And if anybody would like to, they can private message me and we can connect through that.
And they could probably just search for your first name because it has
first name.
Interesting spelling. Why don't you spell your first name?
It's Karlai.
Thank you, Karla. And it is pronounced Karla, right?
It is Karla. Yes. Yes, it is. Thank you, Lily. I'm so glad you're doing this. When I found out, I was Googling anything I could to try to get information on, has this happened before? What do I do? And all I would get is he is not your father show. And I wasn't into those also. I think this is great. And if this can help anybody, that would be awesome. The stories you're doing for us to listen and heal. I just think it's amazing that you're doing this. And thank you so much for doing it.
Thanks again to Karla for sharing today. These stories are here for us to identify with. If you are an NPE that would like to share your story, email npestories@gmail.com. You do not have to give any identifying information. I am searching for more NPEs to share their story, and I'd like to hear from you. Subscribe to this podcast to hear more. Come heal with us.